It's now the top of the hour. This is Greg Stump at the Meteorological Development Lab out here I'm the only employee out here in Norman, Oklahoma. And this is our virtual laboratory project and community owners meeting, our first one in quite some time. I think the last one we had was about 6 months ago. So we've got quite a bit of new stuff to talk about for this meeting here. Without further ado, we're going to go ahead and we'll start off with a welcome from Steve Smith. So Steve, you're unmuted and you're ready to go.
Okay, thanks, Greg. Well, welcome everyone. Apologize for the hiatus here in providing this forum for you all, but welcome back. The good news is we have been working diligently all during this time to bring a number of new capabilities to the VLab that hopefully you may already be benefiting from, and Ken Sparrow is going to start through those in a moment here. I do want to say that we are experiencing a lot of growth for a variety of reasons, and increasingly people are relying on VLab to do their day-to-day jobs, which is what we build it for, which is great. The challenge is to try to keep up with our performance metrics and make sure that everyone has a good VLab experience when they come to use it during their day-to-day jobs. Just for everyone's information, when we originally moved into the IDP environment over in College Park, which is part of NCEP's central operations, we had a special designation in that we operate in the operational environment but we're not considered to be an operational application because it has historically been targeted towards development, collaboration, and research to operations paths. But as I said, the good news is that more and more people are using the VLab for doing that very job, and when it goes down or when there's a problem that needs to be fixed, we need things in a to be fixed in a timely manner so that people can go on doing their jobs. And that designation of being developmental and not fully operational from NCO's perspective means that they treat VLab sort of as a second-class citizen relative to the other things that are fully operational in the IDP. And our tickets get sort of our second tier, are addressed later than the operational tickets. So we are beginning to work with NCO to put in place whatever they require to change that designation from developmental to operational so that our tickets are addressed just like everything else in a timely fashion, because people rely on the VLab services in a critical way. And at the same time, we want to keep the flexibility that we do have currently to allow us to do things that are adaptable and more in our control, which is the really beneficial thing of having being classified as a developmental system. So we're sort of looking for the best of both worlds here. I'm confident that given the high priority VLab has with the agency leadership, but Dr. Uccellini in particular, that this will happen rather smoothly, and you will see more quick resolution of some of the problems that you report to the VLab admin and that we're working on. So I apologize for delays and things. I do appreciate everyone to escalate things in the proper manner through their regions or their headquarters office as it is deemed fit. That helps us do our job when our customers are asking NCO respectfully, of course, to resolve things more quickly. So the other thing I just want to mention is, we're getting our new, I'll say, bolder in terms of large new usage within the VLab is coming from the numerical weather and ocean prediction modeling community. that sees its heart within NCEP's Environmental Modeling Center. They're under a massive migration of their subversion repositories to get VLab repositories in order to take on a lot of new tasks. And so they're really moving out and challenging the VLab development team to meet their needs. But this will be probably our biggest R2O path, even above AWIPS in terms of visibility and criticality, et cetera. So that's the good news. Again, that's what we built VLab for. But this host of users are going to be coming with new ideas, new suggestions, and new problems that we'll have to resolve. But we're looking forward to that. So without further ado, I would just remind folks that this forum is for you, the project and community owners. We have an agenda here, but we can go off the agenda if there's problems and questions you want to raise and have us speak to. So don't be shy in interrupting at any point in the way if you want a clarification question or anything, because that's really what this is. This is your opportunity to sort of speak directly to the people behind the curtain, and hopefully get some answers. And and always, if you have any question at all, just shoot an email to vlab.admin@noaa.gov during regular business hours, and we will we'll try to get whatever answer it is to you in as short a time as possible. So thanks, Greg. I'll hand it back to you.
Thanks a lot, Steve. And for a logistical point, for those of you who do have a question, everybody is in listen-only mode and muted, so you would use the raise your hand feature on the GoToWebinar dashboard. And I'm flying solo right now, so I'll do my best to see, check out, make sure I'm catching everybody's hands being raised at the right time. So. Okay, so moving right along, we've got a lot of new stuff to talk about, and Ken Sparrow is going to take over from here, and he's going to talk about some things and show some things as well. So I'm going to switch him over and make him the panelist, or make him the presenter. And okay. And Ken, you should be ready to go.
Okay, perfect. So, so we've got quite a range of new features given the amount of time that's elapsed since we last met. So let's just run through them. So the first thing I want to talk about was a new theme, and so this was in direct response to feedback from our users. In particular, we have to give a huge thanks to Tao Pham and Kong Ming, both from NSSL. They were the primary developers on this new theme, and so you can see it in play here, as well as looking a little bit different from the old theme. It also has some new capabilities, and so one of the things I wanted to illustrate is that within the top menu, this is a pretty ugly community, and that it's our test community, and it has a lot of different top-level menu pages. But you can, if you go in and you create, it used to be that you could only create second level, or I'm sorry, sub pages under the main menu, and they would display. But if you were to create sub pages of sub pages, then they wouldn't display in the navigation bar and the menu bar. But now they do, and so that's going to give you more flexibility and organizing your content and your pages within your community. And we've already received quite a bit of positive feedback on that. This was just rolled out earlier this week, and so if you find that there are issues, please let us know, and we'll quickly address them. So just so to illustrate how you would actually go in and add that second tier page, you just go into your community, into the pages, you go down to your page, like this one here already has the top tier page and then a first level child page, and I had already created a sub page under that second tier. But if I wanted to create another one, all that I would do is add child page, and then make sure that this is unchecked, hide from navigation bar menu, and it'll show up in the menu bar. So, so that's a nice feature. Okay, so that's the first. The second, and this is in direct response to feedback from users too, is that we now are importing all NOAA users from LDAP into VLCS. And what does that mean to you as a user and community owner? It really should simplify things for you now, because before, if someone had never logged into VLab and you wanted to add them to your community, the first thing you'd have to say is, hey, would you please go out and log into VLab? That would then create an account here. Well, now, if you're within a community and you go up into admin and go to the users and you want to add someone to that particular community, you can see now that there are 22,788 users. Okay, those are all of the users from LDAP. So those are federal and non-federal users that have LDAP accounts. So that when you go into the users within yours and you say add members, you'll be able to select anyone that already has an account or anyone with an LDAP. And so that streamlines the process. So that's a nice new feature. Okay, so after that, we'll talk about, there's also, this was rolled out several months ago. It was in direct response to external partners within VLab. I think everyone knows that you can request external partners so that if you're collaborating with the university or other government agency, you're able to get them an account so that they can collaborate within your community. And so you would do that through here as a NOAA member. But because of the password policies within the Weather Service, we had to require, there are certain restrictions, and one of them is that the passwords expire. I think it's every 60 days. I'm pretty sure of that. And that was a problem because people wouldn't necessarily log in that often. The password would expire, and then they'd have to send an email to us to deal with it. So now all that they have to do is, if they're signed out, I'll do this, you'll see that there's this request external partner password reset. And so they'll type in their screen name that they've been given, fill in the CAPTCHA, and then send a password reset link. And that will then send an email to their registered email address, and then they can click on that, and it'll take them to a portlet that will allow them to reset their password and ensure that it meets the password standards. So that's really streamlined the process. It's been good for us, and it's been good for the external users, as well as the NOAA sponsors, because oftentimes the sponsors were the ones that were getting contacted. Okay, another thing that we've done is we now support inline images within the forums. It used to be that you could attach images, but what this allows you to do is you can actually have inline images. Let me see if I can get to one of the communities that, let's see, I don't know if we've got, let's do National Blended Models, because that's a very active forum, and see if they've got an example. If not, I can go to one of our test ones to show you what I mean by that. But basically, with the attachments, all the images showed up at the bottom of the email when you got the email from a forum entry within VLab. With the inline, you can, point out content and things like that. So, did I go? Let me log back in. So I was logged out because I was showing you the other. And let me come up here, and we'll go back to National Blended Models. And we'll go into their forum. And within here, and let's see if we get lucky or not. And if we don't, like I said, I can show you one of the others. So yeah, that's not a good example. So let me go to one of our others, Virtual Lab Support Team. And the way that you would actually generate one of these is like when you're in your Gmail, interface, you can drag and drop images and things like that into the browser composer, and then speak to let's say you're doing an image of gridded data or things like that. So let me go into here and let me see if we've got image and format attachments inline. I'll just do a quick search. Oop, let me go back. Okay. Line images. Okay. So this is what we're talking about. So, for example, in this case here, I'm responding. So we've got an image in here, and then there's a second image. So this is the first one that was sent. So there's an image in here. Then you can have additional text, and then another image, and so forth and so on. It was quite a challenge actually to get this to work. It's not default behavior of the product that we're using, but Jason Burks spent a lot of time and with some of my assistants, and we got this going. But anyway, hopefully you'll find this to be useful and functional. And when you get the email notification, it should appear this way as well, and you can respond to it as you normally would within your email client. So that's that. So let's move on. One other thing that's not in production yet, but we're very close to having it rolled out, is we're implementing single sign-on within Garrett. So those of you that are developers and are using Garrett for code reviews, you won't have to type in your NOAA credentials. You'll be able to click on a link just like you do for Redmine and also VLCS. So that's close to coming. Along those same lines, we're also close to having a solution to being able to allow external partners to access Garrett. And so the way that will work, if our testing pans out, which it's looking pretty good, will be that the accounts that we create within VLCS for external partners will be able to, when you go to Garrett, those users will be able to authenticate using the same credentials. So it'll actually streamline things too. And in the future, we'll be looking to applying the same logic within Redmine. What this means for users is that the same username password, or for the external partners, is the same username password being used within VLCS will be applied across the board, so that Redmine as well as Garrett, they'll be able to access those services using the same set of credentials, and then the password reset and everything will be done within VLCS. So it'll centralize the accounts for the external partners and will improve security as well as the usability of the site for those users. So that's a function, or that's a direct result of getting requirements from EMC, and the fact that many of their projects, they're collaborating with other people outside of NOAA, and so they wanted to use the code review capability. So anyway, that's coming. Next, we rolled this out, boy, it's been probably 4 or 5 months ago, and that is the software collaboration portal. That was moved from Track and the Collaborate servers onto VLab. This was quite an effort. It was in coordination with the SCP leads, Paul Jędrowski, and then Ashley Kells and Peter Lamb, and so it was a big effort, but we've gotten we were able to migrate all of the wiki pages across, all of the issues, and the repository as well, the Subversion repository. So that's complete, and I haven't seen a lot of traffic on that. So I think that no news typically is good news. So I think that's working well for them. So that is there and available for people to use. So that's focused obviously on the weather service and the field, and that's how they manage local applications within the weather service. So that's now part of VLab. In terms of AIR, the AWIPS Interactive Reference, we did a couple months ago go in and we created communities as well as projects for all the field offices and RFCs. So all the field offices, which includes WFOs and RFCs, that was done, and we also put logic in place so that if LDAP specified it, if the attribute specified which office someone was from, which is done across the board for Eastern region, but not necessarily all the regions, we're taking that information and auto-assigning those members of each of those offices into the corresponding community and organization within VLCS. So that's the reason for this is that this will then give the offices the ability to develop training material, which then would be exposed through AIR, and they can then make training, reference type material available to their office through the standard approach, and so that's a good thing. So it'll also, moving forward, and Steve Corfidi, who I think is on the line, he's going to be developing additional training with regard to how the field offices could use other capabilities within VLCS to meet their needs at the office level. So that's there. As I mentioned, there are also projects for each of those offices. So if we go down to the WFOs in terms of the project listings, there are for each, let me go back so you can see we've broken it down. So by RFCs, and then each of the WFOs, we've got it by region. So it's hierarchical in its nature. And then for each of those, then that gives them the flexibility to have use the project management side of VLab, and if they chose to, they could even use which a number of field offices have. They could use issue tracking and things like that at the office level to help manage things there. So that's that. And then the other two items left, and one of them is my sites or my communities portlet. And so if we go back over here and we go to the main page and you go on the landing page, or if you go to the communities, so you can see it here. I'll go to the communities because it's a little bit bigger there. And so you can see we've made some changes to the look and feel of this, as well as some of the information being presented. And again, this was in direct response to users, and it went through the Virtual Lab Improvement team, the VIT. And one of the things that came up is that people said that, I'm interested in the community, and you could get some information here by going to let's say you're looking to be added to a particular community. You can go in here, but you didn't necessarily know who the owners of that community were. Well, now you can. And so you can hover over the eye, and that'll tell you who the site owners are for each of these communities. And then that would give you a way of contacting them if you had some questions or things. So that's a new capability. We've streamlined this a little bit too in terms of the look and feel. It used to be that the description was on this page as well, and with the proliferation of communities, which is a great thing, it became pretty just too cluttered. And so now if you want to know the description of the community, you can just hover over the eye there, and that'll give you the description for that particular community. So to help you decide whether or not you wanted to join the community. There's also a change too in terms of searching, and that hasn't been pushed out yet, but it will be soon, and that will then also add, if you add tags or categories within your community, those will be used in the search as well. And today it's only using the name and the description, but those tags and categories will be included as well. So that should help you find things faster. Lastly, we're working on putting something in place on the development side, dealing with Git. And this, again, is in response to EMC, but there have been many requests for this before EMC, and that is how do you handle larger files? You don't want to store them natively in the Git repositories because your Git repositories become very large and unwieldy, and because of the nature of Git and the clone pulling everything down, it doesn't make sense to do that. So there's something called Git Large File Storage. It's a plugin to Git. It's something that you can download at the client side, and then it has to be supported on the server side. And so Garrett does support this with the newer version that we're upgrading to. And that upgrade, I'm hoping, should be out there next month. We've been working with NCO on a couple tickets. One of them just got resolved yesterday, so that's good news. So hopefully we should be able to roll out the single sign-on, the update to Garrett, and also we're hoping Git LFS. And what this will allow you to do as a user is clone the repository, not necessarily get all of the large files that might reside within the repository, but then there's a second command you can run to download those. So you wouldn't necessarily want to download large files every time, but this allows you to download files when you need them. And there will still need to be some limitations set in terms of we don't want gigabytes of data or really large files being uploaded to the repositories. It still doesn't make sense, but in certain cases there is a need to store files that we're talking about tens of megabytes to maybe hundreds. So that is a quick summary. Are there any questions from anyone before we move on?
Yes, there was a question from Aaron in the chat, so I'll go ahead and unmute you, Aaron, and you can go ahead and ask it. Aaron, you are unmuted.
Oh, sorry, I had to step out for just a sec.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Ken.
I saw your question, so it's a good question. That is whether or not we're importing all the users into Redmine. We have not done that yet. It is on our plans, and it's something that obviously, it would make sense to do, but we haven't had the time to implement it yet. But it's on the roadmap. I don't know exactly. I don't know if we've scheduled that out yet, but we'll look at that to see when we can get that work done, because it makes sense for you. The only concern I have there is that Liferay, which is a product we're using for VLCS, is having 22,000 accounts was no problem. It's scaled for that. We need to make sure that for Redmine, having that many accounts in there isn't going to cause performance issues. But we'll look at doing that. We might be able to come up with some other approaches to. So yeah, that's something to be aware of. So.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
And it looks like we have a question hand raised by Brian Moretsky. So Brian, you are unmuted.
Thanks. I was wondering if Ken could maybe show some of the communities from the WFO RFCs.
Oh, sure.
How are they being used so far?
I don't know how much they have been used. Yeah. So projects so I can show you here. I know that some of the projects were already in use, like LWX, and there were a handful of them, about half a dozen, that had, kind of on their own, like ILX. They had requested projects on their own before we even went through this initiation or this process. We'd have to, if we looked at one of the others, so let's go to Eastern Region, since it's here from Eastern Region. Central. Okay, and so I'll just pick one and see. Yeah, so like this one here, it's pretty clear that nothing's happened there with it yet. What we did was, one of the things we made sure of is at least one person, and so this was Mike Mogzig and us. We went through and got, or he went and got all of the Su's and does for each of these sites, and then we went through and added them as the lead within the community or within the project.
Yeah, but how were people contacted?
I thought I'll have to go back to my email in terms of emails. I know that.
Yeah, and maybe Mike
talked with them. So.
Okay, well, I think that it's appropriate that they work with the regions, and I'm not sure that this is happening appropriately.
Sure. So we should follow up on that.
Yeah.
So on the community side, here I'll show you. So admin control panel. This is tied to, we create an organizational structure which is hierarchical. The advantage of that is that things feed up. So in terms of the membership feeds up. So you can see we have a NOAA organization. Right now we only have one line office, a weather service in here, but that doesn't mean we plan on creating the other line offices when that's needed. But then under here, there's a hierarchy. So we've got NWS, and then the regions, and then so under each of those regions, then we have the field offices and RFCs. So what that means is that when someone automatically gets added to a particular site, like Boston, they would then select that was a bad one because this person that one doesn't actually have one. They would then be added to, I'll have to look, as we went through, I want to make sure that something hasn't been lost there, but it doesn't, something's not quite right, so I'll have to look at that. So some follow-up needs to take place with regard to these.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Okay, we had another question in the question form from Brian Curran, and he asks, will there be a dummies guide for dummies like me?
So we have a user's guide, and so anyone can get to that. So if you go to the help menu, you can click on the user's guide, and that will have things like there's frequently asked questions and things like that within there. So I would start there. And I guess the first question is, what sort of information are you looking for? And then we can see whether or not we've addressed those needs today. There's also within the help area, you can click on the need help, and that will then give you lots of different options in terms of what you can do to get help. You can send a question in, share an idea, request a consultation, or if you want a demo, you can get a demo. So, and I know that, like I mentioned earlier, Steve Corfidi and the Office of the Chief Learning Officer, they've developed certain training already, like around AIR, but they're going to be developing some more training. It's going to be focused more on the weather service use, like field use, pseudos, and their use of VLab, but that's something that's coming. So I don't know if that would address your question or not.
Okay. All right. So any other questions for Ken before we move on? All right. Thank you very much, Ken. There was a lot of information to go through there. So going back to the agenda, our next item on the agenda is a discussion on the Redmine plugin candidates that Tom Filiaggi is going to lead, and this is going to be the file that he's going to be going with, and I'm going to go ahead and unmute Tom here, and he can take it away. Go ahead, Tom.
Thanks, Greg. We wanted to show people a little bit of how we're trying to improve the Redmine experience on the development services side. This is where the projects exist. What I'd like for everybody to do on this call, though, is as we're talking about this and going over these items, to think to yourself, which of these things you think are particularly important or valuable, or particularly unimportant or lacking in value. And you can let us know what your opinions are, either by raising your hand here and we're having a quick little discussion, or you can also send us email to let us know which things you think are particularly important or unimportant. That'll help us prioritize which of these things gets the most attention. The other thing I'd like you to think about is, after we go through these topics, if you think something's missing, if you say, gee, I really always wanted to be able to do X, Y, Z in Redmine, but I can't, that's another thing that we'd like to know. And again, you can either raise your hand here and say, hey, how do you do this? Or you can send us an email, and perhaps it can be done and we can instruct you on how to do it. Or if it cannot be done, then we'd have to look at extending the functionality of Redmine through plugins and macros and things like that. Currently, our approach has been looking at existing plugins to see what we can make use of, but we are not limited to that. We can create our own plugins. So that just takes a little bit more time, of course. So of course, if something is of particular importance and it can't be done, and maybe there are no plugins or no good plugins out there that do something, then we can consider devoting some of our development resources to creating a new plugin just for VLab's use. So in this document that Greg is showing you right now, I've gone through and I've listed pretty much all of the plugins, the ones that are currently being used, the ones that we're looking at to potentially use in the future, to give you an idea as to what's been going on. So I'm going to zip through these probably kind of quickly. I might spend a little bit more time on the ones in the future, but I want to review what's going on here. So of course, the first one you see on here is we did have to make use of a plugin to enable single sign-on. Don't need to go into detail on that, but that exists, it's there. Then we have a couple of plugins that are of use for the wikis and are used in the textile markup language that is used by Redmine. One is called Wiki Lists and one is called Wiki Issue Fields. Wiki Lists can provide people the ability to list issues in some way that's not in the issues filter or the issues query page. So you can put a table of issues in a wiki if you want to, and that might be particularly handy if you're dealing with something like release notes or something like that. And you can identify a query and use the query to populate that table as well. Wiki Issue Fields allows you to be a little bit more specific, where you can drill down and give some additional details of particular issues that you want to list. The next plugin there is called Category Registration. This is something that was related to the migration of the SCP. It's pretty specific to that, entailing how to register for apps, local apps like the people used to do in the SCP. That might not have a very wide utility, but it is there so far. The next plugin there, the rest of the plugins on this list, in fact, are the ones that we have been either investigating, exploring to see if we can make use of them or not. And that next one there is called Redmine Tags. For those of you that have been using issue tracking and using categorization, you might realize that, hey, for any given issue, you can only use one category for an issue. What if I want to use two? Well, you can't. But if we can get something like this Redmine's Tags plugin to work, then you could. You can use these tags as markers for issues, wiki entries, and a few other types of resources in Redmine. They're also color coded. And I know a lot of people are visual and they like that color coding. It helps them organize what they're seeing. And so that's another big benefit as to why we might want to use these Redmine tags. Unfortunately, it's not, in my opinion, it's not quite good enough because you can't turn it on and off for projects. It's either on for everybody in all of VLab or it's off. So we want to be able to go in there and tweak it, make it so that you can turn it on and off for each project. And then we'll probably make this available hopefully pretty soon, within a couple of months' time, if that. Another big topic that a number of people have asked for is, can we get better notifications? So for example, right now, if you go into your user customization and you can say, okay, I want to be notified by everything, or I want to be notified by only the things that I own, or only the things that I'm involved with. Well, this gets much more granular. We can say, I want to receive a notification for when an issue is updated, or just added or created. So you might be wanting to know when people in your project are creating issues, but you might not want to know when they're all updated because you might get barraged by too much information. Anyway, the listing here, the bulleted list here, gives you an example of some of the things that this plugin purports to be able to do. Unfortunately, as you'll see with a number of these plugins, it didn't pass testing. I don't think I mentioned it in this one, but the reasons why a plugin would not pass our evaluation is that, one, it's not being maintained. Two, we try it out and it doesn't do what it says it's supposed to do. Or three, we try it out and it just flat out gives errors and breaks other things. So what I've found in evaluating these plugins is that there are a significant number of them that just plain old don't work for one reason or another. It's pretty disappointing because some of these are so promising, but again, we have the opportunity to take them and fix them if they are of a high enough priority or important enough to you guys, the user base, for us to make sure these things work. The next one down there says Scrum plugin, and the next one after that is Agile plugin. So we've had a number, and as for those of you that are involved with software development, you know that the Agile process is kind of popular, and it does certain specific things in terms of scrums, which are quick little meetings, and how you track tasks and all that kind of stuff. But it is visual. So if you were to go out on the web and look for Agile tools or Scrum tools, they would be basically web pages with like a tile board or a bunch of visual graphs and such that help you track how things are progressing through your particular release or /sprint. But Redmine does not provide these things by default, so there are a couple of plugins that we can look at. So one of the things we found is there's a Scrum plugin, there's also an Agile plugin, and the Agile plugin kind of does more, but it doesn't do everything that the Scrum plugin does. So not only would we have to check to see if these plugins are good enough to be used, we need to make sure that they are good enough to be used together. And sometimes one plugin can interfere with another. We have to be careful of that. One thing to note here with the Agile plugin, even though it's looking promising, and it is because, well, let me back up a second. The Agile plugin is a for purchase plugin. Most of these are free and open source. The Agile plugin is not, but even though it costs a little bit of money, that means it's also being backed by a company who's selling it and maintaining it. So if we do encounter some problems, we're more likely to receive assistance. But again, if the weather service or if MDL is going to make a purchase, we want to make sure that we're spending money on things that you guys really want to have. So we're not going to just throw money at whatever plugins we find. But I think the Agile plugin is a good candidate. We probably will purchase it. Just a matter of time and going through the process. The next few plugins down there, you'll see the red words failed, because there's one thing or other wrong with these, but we're looking. There's one thing called a wiki extensions that would provide an iframe capability in the lookup language, the markup language. That could be pretty handy because you could use an iframe to include other types of content in your wikis in Redmine. Didn't pass muster, it hadn't been maintained. And when I say it's not being maintained, it usually means it hasn't been touched for a number of years. And we're a little bit leery about using something like that. The next one is a My Page customization. So we've had some requests to say, hey, there is a My Page in Redmine, and you can go to it, and it gives you a quick little report of your stuff in Redmine. But it's not very customizable, and so we want to be able to do a little bit more with that. Again, this one didn't pass muster. By the way, the column on the right there are the issue numbers for these things. So if anybody really does want some details on any particular one of these plugins, you're welcome to go in there, put in that number in the search box in Redmine, and it'll show you that ticket, and you'll be able to read some details if you really care to. Another plugin is called Advanced Roadmap. In Redmine, it provides a roadmap function, which is kind of based off of your versions and the progress made for each of those versions. It'll count how many issues are completed, how many are total for that version or that release, and give you some idea of progress, and that's what your roadmap looks like. Again, it's kind of basic. So this Advanced Roadmap plugin can give you more information, and it allows you to use not only versions but milestones. But again, it didn't quite do what it said it was going to do, and we weren't really clear on whether we should try to fix it or just let it go or look for some alternative. Let's see, another plugin that's noted here is the idea of category watchers. The idea here is that in Redmine, if you might remember, that the term watching is kind of like subscribing. If you're watching something, if it changes, you get an email when it changes to let you know that something's going on. But what you could not do is watch according to category, and this is something that we kind of needed for the SCP migration. And so this is something that, this was a custom, let me see, that this was a, we're still evaluating this one. I don't remember the status of it, but this was something that may or may not have a wide following, but it definitely was something that would be associated to the SCP. Next plugin there is Issue Color Label. The idea is that right now when you list out your issues on the Issues tab, there is no color. It's a tabular. It's a bunch of columns. But this plugin allows you to colorize certain elements of just a few of those attributes, which would be status, tracker, and priority. Basically saying, okay, I want priority 1 items, which is a high priority, to be yellow or something like that to attract attention. You could do that with this Issue Color Label plugin. Didn't quite, it wasn't being maintained, so it's a little bit unclear as to whether it would be too dangerous to use, too easy to break, etc. Another one that was brought up was this idea of a smart issue sort. When you're sorting your issues, sometimes when you have that parent-child relationship between issues where you've got one parent issue and it has a bunch of children underneath it, sometimes when you list them, they get separated and it's not clear how they're related to each other. Sometimes. And this was supposed to fix that. But I think some of the basic searching function within Redmine has been improved to the point where I don't know how much of an issue this is anymore. If you really want to see those connections, I think those connections show up in the Gantt chart, not only the issue listing. Another thing that's been asked for quite a bit is Redmine chat, some of functionality to be able to chat with other users, just like you have in LifeRay on the community side. That does not exist in Redmine. But there are some plugins. Unfortunately, there are a whole bunch of plugins that talk about it and look towards it, but I didn't find a whole lot that was actually carried forward by whoever was working on it. But there are a couple of leads that we will still continue to evaluate. Another one is a Redmine app notification. The idea is to have something like a notification center, just like you have in LifeRay. So if you log into LifeRay, whether you're in your community or not, in the upper right, you'll see a little number. It gives you some idea as to what's trying to get your attention. That's just a quick summary of whatever notifications you're receiving in LifeRay. Well, the same thing could be done in Redmine, perhaps in some way, but we have to evaluate exactly how important it is to really do that or not. Of course, I mentioned with the Agile plugin that there were a number of charts and graphs that could be used in terms of Agile programming. But other than that, we could just provide some more vanilla charts in terms of issues and issue progress and things like that. And there are plugins for these types of things as well, and each plugin kind of has its own way of doing charts and different sections of charts or types of charts that can be done. So we still have to evaluate that to see if any of these would really be worth it and have some value in VLab. Another plugin that the next two are plugins that I think would need to be custom for us. And again, it's only if we think it's important enough to do these things. The Tracker Visualizations plugin is an idea that when you're configuring your project, or maybe you create a new project and you're trying to figure out what trackers to use in the first place, all you have to guide you is a bunch of boxes with names, and that's about it. If you want to know more about it, you'd have to go into the wiki, and you'd have to know that these are there to look at the visualizations that would show you what the life cycles look like for these trackers and which roles can do what. Well, I think it would be useful to have a closer relationship there where you either click on that tracker name and it'll take you to the visualization or show you straight to it, so you can then say, oh, this is totally what I was looking for, or oh, this is really not what I was looking for, and you'll know which trackers might be able to have more value in your project. And finally, there's the idea of having issue templates. Right now, almost all, 99.9% of the issues in VLab are just text. You write in your description, you say what's going on, you fill out your fields, and then there you go. But the description, as well as the comment sections, those all accept the markup language for text style. So you can make it look pretty if you want to, or if you really wanted to organize a description section and have it in pieces, you could do that, but you'd have to add it in every single time. So there is an idea of, utilizing issue templates, which are markup language templates, such that a project could choose these things to pair it with a tracker or something like that, so that when you create a new issue for the very first time, it has that formatting already set for you, if that's something that the project management wants people to do and to use. So I've been talking for a while here. I went through all these. These are the plugins that we've either been looked at in the past, currently looking at, or looking at in the future. And again, if you see anything of particular importance or lack thereof, let us know. If you think something is missing that you think would have a good value, it's not only for you, but other users in VLab, please let us know that as well. So are there any questions or comments to be made?
Any questions for Tom? You can use the raise your hand feature. I think there's a question in the question panel. Hang on. Okay, Brian asked, where do you find the document? I guess this is the document we're looking at right now. Can we make that available, Tom?
Well, certainly people could. This was put together just for this talk, and it might become out of date because it's not being maintained. But yes, you can go in here, and the permissions are set so that anybody with the link can go to the document and see it. So I would say make sure, either send us an email, or that was from who? It was Brian who?
Brian Moretsky.
Oh, okay. I will send it to you, Brian, and you can. I'll send an email to you with a link to this document, and you can take a look.
Okay, great. Any other questions from anybody else for Tom? If not, one more from Brian. Hang on. Said it might be good to share with the VIT as well.
Okay, that's a good idea.
Great idea.
I will look into that and figure out a good way to put it maybe in the community.
Okay. All right, so I think we'll go ahead and move on to our spotlight. And our spotlight, let me bring my owner's meeting agenda back up. Dave Holtz and Aaron Anderson are going to be talking about the Near Storm Environment Awareness Project and how they are utilizing the VLab for what they're doing. So I'm going to go ahead and I will unmute David first. Looks like I can't. I think I need to send a pin. So he says attendee cannot be unmuted. David, you were working earlier, so maybe check to see if you got sent a pin. In the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and make you the presenter. David, let's see. Okay, we see David's screen there. And we're still working to reestablish his audio, so stand by. We don't have any waiting music, so. Yes, this was working during our test before we started the meeting, so what I might suggest here, David, if you can hear us, is to go ahead and reconnect to the GoToMeeting. That might reestablish a way to get your audio to be working again. Aaron, I have you unmuted at the moment. You want to say any words while we get David to reconnect to the GoToWebinar?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I don't quite know where to start. I was going to cover a little bit more of the Redmine part of things and our use of that.
Wish we could talk to him right now. Just send him a chat to reconnect to the webinar. But we are still not hearing. It says an audio pin has been sent to David. Hopefully you see that. Let's see. Okay, David, I think we got you on.
Okay, great. Yeah, I went and just got off the phone and came back on.
All right, so we're seeing your screen, so go on ahead.
Okay, great. All right. Well, thanks very much, Greg. Thanks for allowing us to present our project today. Again, my name is David Hotes. I'm the science officer here at Morristown, Tennessee. My co-presenter is Aaron Anderson. He's the ITO in Norman. And one thing I wanted to do before I really get started, I wanted to show the people on our project team. I'm just very fortunate to have a chance to talk about our project, but there's been, we have a lot of different people on our team. I really want to recognize them for all their hard work. I won't go through everybody individually, but I just definitely want to recognize their hard work for our project. Okay, the presentation objectives. I really kind of just briefly want to talk about the overview of our project. Definitely some images of our applications, and then most importantly, a demonstration of our community project and then our Redmine project. When we get to the Redmine part, I'll definitely let Aaron talk about that. Aaron Anderson has been our main developer through this project. We've also have Jason Shulman and Mike Sutton's also been developing as well, but I definitely wanted to let Aaron kind of talk about the Redmine page, since he has a lot of been doing most of the work with that page. Okay, kind of our project goals. Really two applications we've been working on. One of those was the NSEA application. The other one is the NSEA digital cursor readout. I'll kind of show you images of those here in a little bit. The purpose of our project is to increase the situational awareness of the environment to improve warnings and IDSS support. And really the intended users for the weather forecast offices is really the warning team, mesoanalyst, and also the short-term forecaster. Okay, this is the one of our main applications. This is something that Aaron Anderson's been developing for us. He's been doing an outstanding job. But just kind of briefly what it is, it shows kind of a map. The number one shows a map of the parameters. You can grab whatever different parameters that you want to look at across the area. For example, if you want to look at Cape values, if you want to look at shears or some composite parameter values, you can do that. Right now it's based off of the RAP and the LAPS model. Number two is a time series of graphs. You can kind of go back a couple hours, but also forward about 6 hours of what the different parameters have done in the past and also the present. One of the kind of really neat features that Aaron has put onto this application is the sharp eye coding. You can look at sharp eye soundings and skew-T information for all the different places within your the places within your map. So if you want to look at Norman, or if you want to look at Tulsa, whatever locations you want to look at in your area, you can do that, and you can look at it as a sharp eye sounding. And you can look at the current information, but also you can go out to 6 hours in the future. So a lot of really neat information from the NSEA application. Another part of the applications that we've been working on as a project is the ability to display different parameter information or information about the atmosphere or the environment right on top of your radar. So for this case right here, this is what we call a hail bundle. And if you move your cursor around the or your radar display, you could be able to look at like the Donovan Jungbluff technique. You see what the hail height for 50 dBz hell height would be across your area, -20, -30 height. You can look at cape values and shear values right on top of your radar. This is another example. Excuse me. This is kind of a supercell bundle example, and here you can look at STP values, EHI, helicity, and cape values, again, right on top of your radar. And when they had the New Orleans tornadoes several months back, they had kind of an alpha version of what we have here, and they really found out that having display of parameters right on top of your radar was a big plus. So that's something else we've been working on. Okay, just quickly too, we had the opportunity to go to the OPG. We had 4 weeks of operational readiness evaluations, or OREs, during the 4 weeks of May through June. So we had an opportunity to have forecasters come out and look at these applications, as well as other NSE type tools such as GO16, and evaluate these tools and provide its feedback. And we really want to appreciate the OPG, Kim Runk and his whole staff there. They've done an outstanding job, and really learned a lot during those 4 weeks. Okay, what I want to do now, I want to kind of get out of this presentation, and I want to go to our community page. Okay, here's our NSEA community page that we have, and as you can tell, we have a lot of different information right there in the very front of the page, kind of the home part of the page, about the different applications we're working on. We also have direct links like to our Redmine page. We have a lot of different documents that we put in there. Let me just kind of show you some of the documents. Here's the document library. There we go. You know, one of the big benefits, I think, for the community page for us as a project is this is a really great place of taking all of our different projects and presentations that we've done, images, and really kind of put it in one place. So that way everybody on the project team could go to one location to grab a lot of the stuff that we've been working on. But also too, I think one of the biggest pluses of the community page is it allows other people that learn about our project, that are interested to know a little more about what we're working on. It's just a great resource for them as a one-stop shop to go to. Another thing we have done as well, TJ Turnage, he's the Sioux Grand Rapids. He's really been helping to kind of keep up this page, but he's also kind of put some things in there about some blogs. This is kind of a presentation that was done at the NWA conference in Central Iowa. It kind of shows you what we kind of demonstrated there at that conference. So really, that's pretty much all about the community page. Again, it's just another way of communicating to our team as well as to the Weather Service of what we're doing. So I guess what we'll do now, Greg, if you wouldn't mind passing the screen over to Aaron, and then Aaron's going to talk really more about the Redmine page that we have.
Okay, I'm passing over the screen to Aaron, and Aaron, you are unmuted.
All right, everybody see my page?
Yes.
All right, I just kind of want to talk a little bit about our Redmine side. Like Steve said, I'm the main developer with this, and then also in concert with Jason and a couple other members of the team. A lot of this we use more, for our project management type side, of course, the standard things, the repository, our ticketing system, so people can open tickets and file bug reports and feature requests and different things like that. But I kind of want to talk about a few of the other maybe different things that we've kind of tried out to do that maybe may give some other people some ideas or some things that I found particularly useful when I'm working on things. Another thing we also do use the news functionality, and most of this is to, make announcements for new versions. So that way everybody on the team, gets that notification that, hey, there's a new version out, I can go upgrade and start testing things out. One of the things we did start doing is kind of utilizing the forums. So we do have, regular conference calls, but, sometimes those can get pretty sporadic. So something that I wanted to try to do instead of, because a lot of times in something early with this, you'll get, an idea for some new feature or some enhancement or something like that. And I'll, for a lot of these, you want some discussion with the group. Is like, okay, is this something that's really needed? Is this going to be useful? Is this, you kind of want to discuss things and hash things out a little bit. And I wanted to do a lot of that before they became tickets, so I could keep the ticketing stuff focused on things that I needed to work on instead of kind of discussions, about features. Some of the things I want to do is kind of use the forums for that. We set up some different forums. One of them, we have a feature request kind of area, so we can come in and start, a forum entry for some, particular enhancement that we want, but then everybody on the team can come in and provide some feedback on, is this a good idea, is it not, maybe, expand it a little bit. And then once it's kind of been, agreed to and kind of worked through and the ideas matured, then turning that into the ticket. And then we can even reference that ticket in the forum. That way we kind of, instead of searching through a million email chains to find, the information that I was looking for, everything is contained in the forum, then it becomes a ticket, and then that ticket can be linked, inside that forum entry. Another thing that helps me quite a bit, especially from the development side, is the Gantt chart. I don't know if a lot of people kind of utilize the Gantt chart stuff, but one of the things I've made it a point to doing, and not only this project, but a few other projects I'm involved in, is making use of the versions. So you can set up in settings. I'll come in here, and when I'm getting ready to, work on a new version, or I know, the next, 3 versions that I'm going to do, I can come in and at least define those in here. And that way, when tickets are opened, or as I start to work on tickets, I can start, go through and assign those to different versions. Okay, come back into the issues and kind of show you what I'm talking about. So I'll just look at this one in particular. So, I can start assigning things to target versions. What version that I think that should be in, or what, what I need to work on in that part. And then I'm able to use the Gantt chart, which helps me quite a bit, especially being in the field. I don't necessarily always have a lot of time to work on things. So a lot of times, there may be a, week or a few weeks or even a month or something in between times that I have to work on and develop things. So, a month has passed by, I've kind of forgotten what I've worked on last or where I was at. The Gantt chart really kind of helps me look at, okay, well, where am I at? What have I done? And, what are the things I need to work on for this, this next release? I have this release that I want to get out, in the next 6 weeks. What are the tickets I still have left on there? What can I knock out? It just helps keep me focused instead of randomly, sitting down at the computer and going, okay, what should I work on today? It kind of helps keep me focused on working on the things that are important and the higher priority items. Another really useful thing, of course, with the repository is Dave was talking with we did the OPG evaluation. And of course, during times like that, we get, a lot of feedback, even some, bugs and, some features, it'd be great if it did this. And one of the really neat things about, using the Redvine repository and for is, as I would hear these things and we talk about things, it was something I'd be able to sit down, here in Norman and, either fix an issue or, implement some enhancement that, came up during the OPG, quickly push those up to the repository, and then at the OPG, it was as simple as a git pull and restart the application, and they had the fixes of the new features in there that then they could start testing and iterate on. So it made for, really rapid, bug fixes and also prototyping and being able to get feedback really quickly on that. So I think that's about all I had from the Redmine side. I guess, David, did you have anything else, or ready to open up for any questions or anything?
I want to say, Greg, do you still hear me?
Yeah, I hear both of you fine.
Okay, great. Yeah, if there's any questions about our project or anything about the VLab community Redmine page, please feel free to ask it.
I think Steve Smith has a question. He wants to comment, so go ahead and unmute you, Steve. Go ahead.
Hey, Greg, thanks. Dave and Aaron, I really want to thank you for, walking us through how you're using, both sides of the VLab for this particular project. And if Louis Cellini were here, he'd be giving out the hosannas, because this is what his dream is, to see, the field working on projects that are taking a field idea and moving it up in operation or technical readiness to potential national deployment, and taking advantage of the resources that are there in the VLab and the OPG. He is relentless in his pursuit of this. So you guys are really role models for the agency in that regard, and I really appreciate the sort of no-nonsense approach to this, because really this isn't rocket science. It's a question of rolling up the sleeves and using these tools as they're intended, really, as you said, Dave, the community allows you a place to share the corporate knowledge of your project with others, keep track of things, post information, and that sort of thing. And the Redmine project side, Aaron, is if software is involved, it allows for relatively easy management, and I really appreciate your nuance of pointing out you have operational duties, so you're not full time on this, but and how the Redmine allows for you to sort of pick things up after you've had a hiatus in doing much, and that last piece too, about the ability to push stuff out, do a git pull, and then update your code for testing that easily. That obviously is a great use case that others have used as well. So you're hitting them all, all the buttons. I guess a question for you, Aaron. If you hadn't had these tools, what would you have resorted to? With some local software, or what were you doing before, I guess, the VLab was around?
That's a good question. I don't know what I would have done with with a team like this, being a distributed team. I kind of know, prior to being here in the Norman office, I was over at WDTB and was helping, develop West 2 Bridge and Wessel 2 and things like that. And one of the things that we spun up over there was actually, a track instance just locally in our office, because at the time that's what Raytheon was using. And so we had kind of access to that to, look at tickets and even, open things. So after looking at that, it was kind of a, a light bulb, like, man, this will really make sense and make it easier just developing locally in-house. Mm-hmm. I don't know what we would have done in a distributed type team like this. I think that's one of the great things with, the VLab community is you can get more of that, open source, GitHub type, community development going, that I think is such a great thing, rather than everybody being in their own little fiefdom or office and just developing, and then you have 20 versions of the same thing, and it never gets shared around or anywhere. Everybody can contribute to it. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of the VLab and especially the Redmine side.
Okay, well, that's great to hear, and your work, speaks for yourself, and for that, to that point. So again, thanks for sharing that with those on the call.
Tom Filiot, oh, go ahead.
Also, I'm sorry. Also, this is Dave. Also, I appreciate the kind words, and I do want to say, I think for trying to do development work on a project that's through multi-regions, having a community page and a Redmine page is almost something you have to have. But again, thank you. Thanks, Greg, and everyone for allowing us to present the project.
Absolutely. We got a question from Tom. You're unmuted. Go ahead, Tom.
Thanks, Greg. As we've been mentioning throughout this call, probably, and people who use these elements, they see this. There are some functions that exist on both sides, both in Redmine and both in LifeRay, such as wikis, such as forums. And so your project is one of the ones that is using both sides. I was wondering if there's anything that you'd like to say about, I don't know, comparing or contrasting the two sides when your function exists on both sides, like a wiki or a forum. Were there particular reasons why you chose one over the other, or do you like one more than the other for something or other? Is there anything you'd like to say about that on both sides thing?
I want to say, Tom, you're talking about the community page.
Right, the community page and the project page. On each side, there are some elements that are they're both on both sides.
Sure. I think when it comes to the forum and on the Redmine page, I think that the reason why that is so useful, because it really directly relates to that project, to that application. So essentially it directly relates to that application, the NSE application that Aaron's been working on. That's the reason why that forum is very useful in that regard, instead of using maybe the forum in the community page. So I think the community page is more of a overall, maybe project goals. But when it comes to individual applications, I think that's the reason why that forum in the Redmine is very useful.
Yeah, I think we've kind of kept more of the Redmine stuff to be more tied to development, and the community being more, maybe higher level. I'm more, I guess, especially coming from the developer side, always lean more towards Redmine, because Redmine is very intuitive and it's easy to figure out, and it kind of makes sense, especially from a developer's perspective. Sometimes digging into the community side, it can be really kind of overwhelming, and figuring out how things work and okay, where should I put these things? It's not always as intuitive, so I think it kind of scares people away sometimes. And I even find myself doing that. I'll kind of migrate towards the Redmine side initially, because it's more intuitive and it's more comfortable. You know what I mean?
I'll say, Tom, did we answer your question?
Oh, sure. I just wanted to hear your opinions as to that kind of a consideration.
Sure.
So we have any other questions for David or Aaron? If not, I would like to also say that this was definitely worth the wait for you guys. I was particularly impressed with the use of Redmine. It's got me kind of motivated to move one of my research projects finally into there. The same kind of things, Aaron, that you mentioned about being pulled away with other projects, in your case, operational duties and things like that. The same with me, so it'd be nice to be able to track my tickets and things like that in the way you did. So we might actually point folks to this particular video when we get it up on YouTube as kind of, I'd say, one of the model uses of the VLab, especially the development side here. So again, thank you very much for your presentation today. The last item on the agenda, let me go ahead and bring the screen back to me here so we can see the agenda, is our roundtable. This is when we open the floor up to everybody who's on the call if they want to bring up any other things regarding the VLab as in their role as an owner of a project and or a community. This is a good time to do that. So you can go ahead and use the raise my hand feature or the question feature right now if you have something to say. And I'm watching right at the moment to see if anybody puts their hand up. But if not, as Ken alluded to earlier, the link at the top of the collaboration page for help also contains a contact to get more information. Essentially, you can email the vlab.admin@noaa.gov for anything or make suggestions to the VLab improvement team on a whole host of different ways that you can provide feedback and get information from the VLab folks. So I see a hand up. Brian Mata, you are unmuted. Go ahead.
Yeah, hey, Greg. I guess the question I have is regarding air. Is there going to be some kind of like working group or regular interaction on how to implement that and how the field is using it?
Ken, I have you unmuted again. You want to respond to that?
Yeah, so there's been discussion about some of this with like Mike Mogzig and their group, which I know you're associated with. I don't know. So that idea has been passed back and forth. You're talking about like an overarching group that kind of manages the content itself. Is that or the direction that's going? Yes. What specifically are you looking for?
Well, just kind of a working group that would talk about, you know, which things are working, which things maybe aren't working, and what, you know, just an interface to the developers.
Yeah, we probably, when Mike becomes available, because they've taken an active role in developing some very good documentation and training material regarding air, and so they have a very good understanding of it. We should follow up and figure out who, you know, how to set something like that. I think it's a good idea, obviously, because it impacts, you know, there's a potential for someone to misuse it and impact the user experience for the forecasters.
So that was a yes, you're open to that?
Yeah, we're definitely open to it. We've just been very busy, so but I'll follow up with Mike and with Steve Smith, and we'll see, and then obviously the AWIPS program. So to find out, you know, how we want to coordinate this.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
All right, thanks, Ken and Brian. Any other questions? I'm watching for hands being raised, and I'll give you guys about 5 to 10 more seconds. All right. Okay, so go ahead and put a close on this call. It was very informative. We almost filled out our full 90 minutes of time. We have our next meeting scheduled less than a month from today, but that's going to be pending availability of our upcoming community project spotlight folks. So just watch for any changes in that schedule if they so happen, but for now it's scheduled for August 23rd. That's back on the Wednesday slot, starting at 3 o'clock Eastern Time, going for 90 minutes. So I want to again thank our speakers for today, Steve, Ken, Tom, David, and Aaron. And the video will be posted on YouTube sometime in the next few days, and I will send out an email with a link to that video. to all the owners. So thank you very much for attending this version of the Virtual Lab Project and Community Owners Meeting. We'll see you next time.